I try to make asset management simple. Like you don't need a ton of money to do asset management. You don't need a ton of tools. I'm going to talk about some free resources and inexpensive ways to make it work for you. Um, it's not, it never goes perfect. Your business plan, asset management, it's about solving problems, being proactive, measuring everything. Like if you do those things, you're going to be well ahead of almost everyone else. So yeah, I've invested in about 3,000 units. In between film and going full time in real estate, I owned a after school outdoor ed and leadership development company. We worked with 9,000 students daily, and I started a nonprofit. So yeah, here's a copy of the book, the podcast artwork on the right. And last year I won from the Apartment Association of America the Best Syndicator of the Year award, which was pretty cool. Okay, so a lot of people get confused, even operators get confused between property management and asset management. And it is completely different. Your property manager, management company, usually, I mean, if you guys are all just starting out, we'll have third party. Even I have third party. I don't want to bring it in house. That's one of the big questions I get. My old business, we had over 700 employees and another 700 independent contractors, and we were always understaffed. It was an HR nightmare. And this way I could focus on operating and chasing deals and being nimble. I'm not beholden to a certain market, although we really focus on a few markets. We're not chasing deals all over the country. We're hyper focused, which I highly recommend. But I had that freedom of I'm not having all that, running a whole nother business. So property management, they'll manage, 30 to 100 properties, maybe within that sub-market. There's an accountant on the property an accountant designated for this property, and they might have, 10, 15 different properties. So the staff kind of punches in and punches out. And so you need to really make a difference to really engage with that property management team and making sure that they are feel listened and respected. Property management is a low margin, thankless job. So by you showing some care, it will mean the world to them. And so we empower our team. Like we want them on our weekly calls, the property manager. And it's funny, our regionals, they're not used to talking to owners. I'm like, I want to talk to them. I want to hear what's going on. I'm going to show up, unannounced. I want to see what's, they're going to give me more information than, the regional might, just because, they're just shooting from the hip. And you want to make sure they know that their input matters. They're there every single day. I want to know what's not working, what's working. It's okay. Like I don't expect everything to be working perfectly. I mean, we're going to keep working at it every week. We're going to make small improvements. We're not going to double NOI in the first month, but some of our best properties we've improved at 43% a year. We've got one that we've doubled in a year, but that's very rare. I'm very happy with a 43% improvement. So, but it's empowering your team and making sure that they're heard, they're noticed. Managing the manager, you've got to, like I said, have those weekly calls. You've got to manage them. You've got to execute the business plan. The regional who is critical to your success probably manages 10 to maybe even 15 properties. So they're very busy, and it's like herding cats. You're constantly reminding them, hey, we need X done or Y done. And I'll show you some of the tools and tricks that we use. Asset management also, like I said, business plan execution, walking through the financials and making sure everything is correct. I mean, we had our first property, our 42 unit, they assigned, it was like a $10,000 piece of equipment to us, and they weren't doing it on purpose. They made a mistake, but if we didn't really dive through our financials, we wouldn't have noticed that. And it's funny, our our property management companies, like owners rarely go through, the financial analysis. They'll just look at a couple things on the report, but we really dive through it. It's once you get the hang of it, it shouldn't take too long. And when we weren't a whiz when we first started, we just asked a lot of questions. I still ask a lot of questions. Why is it this or why is it that? And usually they have a really good answer. And sometimes we'll have to dig a little deeper and find out, they changed our business plan for some reason, or whatever it is, we have to like get them back under control. And so going through the financials are really, really important. Investor communication, Drew mentioned that. We're going to share our wins, we're going to share our losses. Like, no investor expects everything to go perfectly, but if you're struggling, then communicate that and provide a solution. And if that doesn't work the next month, then you're on to solution B, then solution C, then solution D. Like some of my best deals were deals that I struggled with from takeover to the end. That's okay as long as you're being proactive and at the end of the day you're really increasing the value. So this is hard work. And sometimes the smoothest deals are the ones that you'll be blindsided at some point. So just keep at it. Don't get discouraged. Asset management also is dealing with curveballs and pivoting. I mean, we've had properties where we've had one plan and we decided to change it, where we thought the painting was pretty good, and a year and a half in, we decided to paint. And because we had a lot of extra money in our CapEx, we were able to do that. And we thought it really helped on the sale. So, having those buffers, being able to pivot and have that imagination and talking, don't be afraid. Like, we talk to our broker, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? Does it improve the value? You're not necessarily going to see it in the rents. You can't say, oh, this is like ROI on the paint. And we know there is, but talking to your broker, talking to your regional asset manager, regional property manager, get their feedback. It's a team sport. So, don't be afraid to ask for their input. We want their input. We want everyone's, expertise, and then we can decide what we want to do. And then certainly with asset management is handling the disposition, picking the right times. We've sold 3 of our deals 2 years or less because the market was on fire. So we took advantage of it. Now we have another deal we've doubled the value, but it's not a good time to sell. So we're refining right now into a HUD loan, and we'll wait, 3 years. We'll wait to an opportune time to sell it. So we locked in gains when we could, and now that we can't, we have the debt that works for our other properties. So timing is really important, knowing and having that constant communication with the brokers as well. What is he seeing? And you'll know when the market's hot. Like you could tell. All right. So asset management, make a good deal great, make a bad deal good. Seeing issues before they happen. By measuring everything, you'll start seeing trends where maybe it's interior renovations that are taking, what should take 4 weeks or less are now taking 5, 6, 7 weeks. We've had problems where, our leasing hasn't been going as well. And we're like, well, what the heck is going on? Is because they're not turning units fast enough. We don't have a model. So potential residents aren't seeing a unit to potentially rent. So just tracking everything, you'll be able to see issues before they happen and protect investors' capital. So we like to do a lot of our property visits without letting them know, like, hey, we're coming, make sure everything is clean. We're not trying to catch them doing something bad. Quite honestly, we're trying to catch them doing something good. But we'll get a feel for how the property is operating when we're not there. And part of it is setting really good expectations from day one. Setting the bar. They don't know what the target is, and most asset managers and operators are, I would say, more chasing deals. So, they'll get a property, here's a plan, and then, they're not paying attention as much. But if you set a really high expectation and they know that you're frequently visiting, then that'll help them raise the bar. And we'll visit our properties anywhere from every 3 to 5 weeks based on what's going on with the property. Are we looking at new properties? All of our properties, they're in Phoenix and Tucson. So I can visit all my properties in a day and still shop 5 other properties that I'm interested in buying. That not being in all these different markets really helps me get to my properties more often. Like we did DD last Thursday, finished late afternoon, and I was able to stop by a few of my properties. So it just helps having them all in one area.
Gary, could I drop a question in there?
Yeah.
So you talk about setting expectations day one. Could you go into detail about how exactly you do that? Like, what is that conversation like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to tell them, hey, we're going to secret shop you. We're going to do property visits without notice, and I'll say we don't want to scare them, but I do say, like, I want to catch you doing something good. We're going to have our weekly calls on a consistent basis. We're going to push rents. We want the property spotless. We want you to take ownership. We want you to give us feedback when things aren't working, whether it's our direction or something that we should be doing at that property. So we're empowering them, but really letting them know what we'll be doing and what the expectations are. We'll walk them through our Google tracker and everything, and we'll talk about accountability. So it helps set the stage so that there's no surprises. And a month in, we're saying, oh, we want this and that, which I've had with other partners before, and that's just really tough. Like we had a pref partner that was like every 2 months they're changing the rules on us on what they want, and it's like, just tell us from the beginning what you need and we'll give you everything. But if you change it every 2 months, it's just a pain in the ass.
Hey, Gary.
So make sure you also have access to the property management software. We use Yardi. Every property management company has, there's a few out there. Go over your monthly reports in detail. There's a lot of good information. And like I said, secret shop your property. So my operations person, she'll email and she'll call. We have a checklist. Some properties that are kicking butt, we won't do it every month, but other properties will, or if we have someone new, we'll do it on a consistent basis. And no one's ever hit 100%. But we want to make sure, like, we give them feedback on what's working, what's not. We want to make sure when we secret shop it, are they answering the question, are the specific questions that we're asking? If we say, oh, do you accept a big dog that's 50 pounds? And if they don't address it, then they're not really, it's like an auto response. How quickly do they get back? Because if they don't get back within a certain time frame, then that person is off renting somewhere else. So speed is incredibly important. And some property management have like an automated system, some don't. You'll want to see what they're sending out, because some have had help from their regional manager, and sometimes you'll get like an awful email, like, it's pathetic. So just check that always and improve it.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions related to your weekly call there.
Yeah.
One is I'm dying to know what kind of your agenda looks like there. But before we get there, what you mentioned a checklist, like what feeds that weekly agenda? Like, do you have a pre-meeting before the meeting, on the team? Could you elaborate there?
Yeah, so we'll get a report ahead of time from they send me their weekly report, which is like 20 pages long. There's stuff like up, sideways. So it's to me that's kind of useless. I can't track it. And here I'll share my screen. I'll share my tracker with you guys. Share. Let's see.
Yeah, because there's some things that are good weekly and there's some things that are good monthly.
Yeah. Let's do this. That's it. do I get behind this? Let's see. All right, so here's one of our properties. And so the weekly report is all on one sheet, so it's easy to see. And you'll see here on the bottom, I've got a tab for every single week. We took this over at the end of December 2021, so you'll see a tab for every week. And so I'll know what was our rents in 10, 16, 22? What was our occupancy like? What was our delinquency? So it's all like easy. I can look at one sheet and not have to look at 30 sheets. And then I can go, we have a lease tracker. And so we're going to, checking every lease when, what are the renewals? How much, what's the percentage increase? And most of this is all automated. They just have to put in a couple different numbers, and we want to make it easy for them. I have this later, but like we have this task tracker. So no, that's here we go. So it just said, what needs to be done, who's in charge, by what date, so you kind of look like a jerk if it hasn't been completed on time. And sometimes I'm jotting notes down on a piece of paper. If I put it all on here, like I won't lose that, like piece of paper. It's all right here. And even if they do it 15 minutes before our call, that's fine. I know it's getting done. We also have our CapEx tracker here. Where we are, money since acquisition spent, money left to spend, difference, and just everything is all in one place, and everyone on the team can see. All right, let me do a new share.
And you have a probably a separate sheet for like monthly information, like running T12 and stuff like that.
Yeah, they'll send me the full report on that. So that we won't put in like the weekly. That'll be separate. That we'll go through.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So we have an acronym here: MAP. Measure everything, have the accountability, and being proactive. You do those three things, you're way ahead of most people. So tracking, I showed you the Google Drive that we have, the Google Sheet. What we've used sometimes is a Trello board for unit renovations because they weren't getting done in time. So, when we knew someone was leaving their unit, we'd make sure the kit was there. We notified the renovation team, and we just move it along the different pieces. Flooring done, cabinets installed, kit arrived, kit is installed, and just all along so that we're making sure we're hitting our target and not wasting time. I mean, if we could shave off a week of every renovation and getting someone in there quicker, that ends up being a lot of extra money, pure profit, for you and your investors. So every time we could shrink timelines down, the better. And I'm not perfect trying to get, vendors out to properties. Everything is always delayed. It's not. I wish it was like everything was done like within a month, and certainly it doesn't happen that way. Let's be realistic that you can't overload the property management company. You've got to, what are your, top, 2 priorities this month, and then keep working at it. But certainly staying on top of it and attacking it, before you even take over, so that things can start right away is really helpful. That one property in Tucson, the water bill is like twice as much as one of our other properties, which has the same amount of units. So I'm making sure, like day one, we get the guy out there to do the water conservation plan, because I want to get as much savings as I can throughout the year. So I want him like jumping on that ASAP. That, to me, that's the most important thing. We'll get to the renovations and whatnot. Let's save a lot of money right off the bat. Yeah, so here was that kind of task tracker that I showed you. And the CapEx tracker. We'll also have a bit deeper CapEx tracker, and again, it's not always easy to get the full breakdown per unit, but this really gives me information on how expenses are tracking. Are we on averaging about the same amount over the course of like many units? We're not doing the same reno for every unit. Some people do, but we'll if the floors are good, we'll keep them. If the cabinets are good, we'll keep them. It'll also help me when I'm underwriting new deals too, because I'll know how much we've been spending, where it's been trending from one year to the next. So it's just really good to have that breakdown. And then when it comes to occupancy, we're going to look at it. We're going to break down every single unit type. I don't want to look at it as a whole. We might have a few units that have been sitting forever for some reason. Maybe they're next to a unit that the dog is really loud, or it's on the edge of the property. It's just not a good location. Fine, I'll lower the rents $25, $50, whatever it is. I want to get those rented. But if my other units are like 95%, then I'm going to push the pricing on that. So I want to see all the different unit types, what's been renting, what's not, and it just helps for my market expertise too, to know, okay, what I can do. And other properties are my, some properties, the non-renovated units go super fast. So maybe, you don't want to go, super fast on your renovation plan and have some unrenovated units that you can rent right away and just kind of slowly do your plan. So it just gives you're able to make a lot better decisions by having all this data. All right. And you also want to check, again, this is something that I struggle with my property management team is that traffic conversion. Is knowing where they're coming from. And so here I've got 208 leads from Apartment Guide, but I've only got 4 move-ins. My conversion rate sucks. It's 1.9%. Craigslist has 16 leads and the same move-ins. It's a much higher conversion rate. So I'd want to double down on Craigslist. Now, every apartment building is different. Even in the same submarket, one thing can work at one place and one thing can work at another. We're constantly tweaking and playing, trying different things, because what worked yesterday doesn't work, tomorrow. So it's constantly tweaking, constantly measuring where are people coming in from, and conversion. Who's submitting an application, who's doing a tour, who's submitting a lease. You want to track all that and making sure we're converting. And if not, where's the problem? Do we have too many people from Section 8 applying and we don't take Section 8? That could have been the problem there on Apartment Guide. So just making sure maybe our advertising is right. So we just want to see what's working, what's not working.
And Gary, as the asset manager, when it comes to advertising, are you the one that's kind of driving how that happens, or do you just tell the property managers like, hey, I want to be on these sites, go do your thing? Or like, how involved are you in the actual like ad copy, everything like that, the details of it?
Yeah, not really. I'm not very active in the ad copy, although we'll spot check where we're listed, and we'll usually make corrections like every time, because they're not, they're just not good marketers or whatnot. And what we've done recently too is a lot of our places, we've gotten rid of the model. We'll want to rent it up, but what we've done is taken pictures. There's a company called Box Brownie, really inexpensive. So we took a few shots of a unit, an empty renovated unit, and they'll put in like digitally put in like furniture, and they'll stage it for like $25 a picture. It's like, I'm giving you all my secrets. But it's a great way to go, like it looks really good, and like it's so cheap. So this way you don't have to have them, if you haven't staged a model yet, or or don't want to, that's a really good way to go. And we had like really bad pictures on some of our sites, and I was like, how is this gonna rent units? Like, come on, let's, there's so much technology out there. So and our regional manager was moving really slow on it. So we just like, I'm like, let's just do it ourselves. Like, I'm not gonna keep waiting for her. It's taken like a month, let's just do it. So we did. We hired the photographer, we got it, sent it to, Box Brownie, and got it up and got it loaded. I think it shows much better. All right, so I threw in some before and after pictures. I've used this presentation in a number of different ways, but I mean, look on the left, just the difference in the paint and like signage is huge. Like, we didn't even have to renovate units, and we were able to push rents like $200 just because of that. And in the landscaping in column 3, I mean, we didn't spend a lot in landscaping, but I love buying properties that property owners have just fallen asleep on. It's easy pickings. Here's some more work that we did, like signage, just the name too, San Marin. What is that? Icon Park. That's kind of a cool name. You got like beautiful signage there. Less than $20,000. Makes a huge difference. Good paint job makes a huge difference. And we actually redid the whole clubhouse and everything here. I mean, and sometimes your best ideas don't happen the first time. Like we went there probably 4 different times with the GC and our regional, kind of trying to come up with like really good ideas. And eventually we got there, but it wasn't, we were struggling on what we wanted to do there, to be honest. But we keep brainstorming and got there. So like I said, be proactive, measure everything. CapEx, keep really good controls, have a lot of buffers in there, because you don't want to run out and then you're kind of screwed. Your option is you either put in your own money, you do a capital call, take it out of cash flow, which you don't want to do, or you have to sell. So make sure you have plenty of room. We'll always have, for every property, depending upon the size, 100,000 extra, even if they got new roofs, 100,000 for roofs, 100,000 for electrical, 100,000 for plumbing, because HVAC, because if you use your reserve, you're never going to have enough for things that break, and things break all the time. So just having those buffers is really important. And if we don't ever spend that money, then that's great. That goes back to our investors. So just having that breathing room will let you sleep better at night. That's more for investors, and that's our investor relations guy. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. We could delve deeper into anything in particular.
I got a couple. I could probably toss your way. In regards to property managers, is there, at what point do you say like enough is enough? You're not a right fit for this property. Like, how many strikes do you give them across how many different domains of property management? Could you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. So our second property, we waited too long to fire a property manager. The person was nice, and you want to give them that chance, but we visit, and things that she said weren't done. And so we made the change. And there was a couple of times we gave them like an opportunity to do better. And so we'll give them some feedback and say, hey, you're not operating at where we want to be. This is the level that we want you to be at. But after 2 times doing that, and they're not getting, well, you want to make sure they're getting the support from their regional too. But if they're not hitting it, then you got to make the change. We've changed out the property manager, regional manager, and even the property management company. And those are hard decisions. And we always gave them a chance to do better. And if they don't after that, then you got to make that change. But no property manager is perfect. No regional is perfect. No property management company is perfect. So even when you have it in-house, it's not, you know, everyone says it's much better. I don't believe it. But so if we can get them to be, you know, pretty good and then cover their gaps, you know, over time we understand, okay, well, they're not so good at this part. So this is where we need to focus our attention on and help them with some of their gaps so that we can be, you know, a 9 out of 10. You know, I don't think you ever get to 10 out of 10, but okay, can we get it to a 9 out of 10 and get them from a 7 to a 9, you know, by filling in some of those gaps.
Clear. Appreciate that.
Question, Gary. I think this is a bit of a loaded question because you talk about this in your book, but in terms of tracking your terms and lease ups of individual units, do you have a tracker for that as well?
Yeah, we have the lease up tracker that's on that Google sheet. So making sure our property manager puts in that information every time something gets leased up, because we'll share that information with our investors, where the first year we'll do like, oh, well, it's a percentage change, but going forward we'll also include, okay, what that unit used to rent for and what it's now renting for. Like, we've done it on and off, but we actually need to be consistent, because we're constantly looking at our newsletters and saying, okay, how do we improve it? And really, we look at everything that we do. And whenever I have a new person join the team, it's an opportunity to kind of like improve something, like having fresh eyes on it, because we're constantly looking to get better. And it's a constant improvement cycle here.
To your point about having them have access to these KPIs and things, do you have them be responsible for filling in some of the data, or is it all kind of automated from their reports?
It's not automated, but it shouldn't really take more than 10 minutes for a property manager to fill it out. If it is, you know, then the regional is going to push back. So we would try to make it simple for them, and you know, we want them to fill it out, you know, a couple hours before our meeting so we can look at it. And I know a question before of like, what's our agenda? But so we know ahead of time going in is, you know, where what's working, what's not working, so we can address that. Because I already see all the data, so I don't need to ask them everything. I'm going to ask them the things that aren't working. I'll praise them for the things that are working. And so we'll typically line up our properties every 15 minutes. For a new property might be a little longer, and just, you know, attack the things that we want to. And sometimes a call will be a little longer, sometimes it'll be a little less, particularly in the beginning, like maybe the first 6 months when you're executing your plan, but having those consistent. And then just banging out what needs to be addressed. Maybe it's delinquency spiked, or occupancy is dipping, or renos, whatever it is, you know.
And Gary, go ahead, Drew. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so part of managing, you mentioned, like, you know, disposition at the right time. Are you guys getting, BOVs yearly, or like, how do you kind of track that part of it, I guess?
Yeah, when things were really hot, we would get BOVs every year. And if we felt pretty good about the property, you know, we talk about the business plan. So one property, we renovated pretty much all the units. So, and this was, our first property, 42 units. So we came up with a plan of creating a platinum level and did like 3 to 4 units. So people love meat on the bones, you know? So we created a second level for someone to implement, because now we were getting an extra, I don't know, it was like $2,500 more for another $125 rent bump. So that was the story that we were able to sell. But we worked with the broker to come up with that plan, you know. So yeah, it's these days, you know, if you bought something last year and you get a BOV, you're gonna be a little depressed, you know. But you know, if you play the long game, you know, you'll be in good shape. You know, if you're selling in a couple of years and not forced to sell anything in the next year or so, then you'll be fine. And like our properties, the value, some of them have gone down, but we've increased the NOI tremendously. So we know, you know, in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we're going to do phenomenally well on those properties. But if I had to sell them now or next year, I'm going to be hurting a little bit.
Yep, good points. Survive to 25.
I want to thrive to 25. I don't want to just survive.
Yeah, for sure. One question I had is, you know, what does your asset management team, you know, in Break of Day look like to, you know, currently, and then what's your vision for it? Yeah, I'll just pause there.
Yeah, so I have well, I'll just go over my whole team. So I have an operations person, so she'll handle some we have a VA that's part-time, so she'll do some social media. She could pull some market reports. We have her just starting now uploading like the T12 and rent roll into our underwriting model, because that's just this easy stuff that she can do. So then my operations manager manages her, and then she'll pay some small bills. She'll put the newsletters together. Anything that I could put on her desk, she'll handle. And then I have a director of investor relations. I have someone that handles special projects, probably more so part-time. And then I have an acquisition / asset manager. So we own 7 properties now, so he can handle everything that's going on. But as we continue to grow, I'm going to have to add another person to the team to help him. But having the VA and having the operations person also takes things off of that person's plate. So we're constantly managing the workload. But it's easy to add more people to the team. And the more assets we start owning, the more I'm going to have to add to that. But you know, putting enough resources and time to asset management is so important, because it certainly will cost money, but you'll make that money back tenfold.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Question.
Hey, Gary.
Oh,
Sorry, Mark.
no, go on, Gonzalo.
Okay. Hey, Gary, this is Gonzalo with Maple. I'm managing we're managing around 100 units with some of the guys here on this call in Louisville, Kentucky. And I have a question for you regarding work orders and just making sure that they're, you know, that these things are being completed within a certain amount of period. Two-part question on that. For work orders, how do you guys kind of track, you know, making sure that work orders are getting completed during a certain amount of time, because it's so important in, you know, tenant satisfaction? And do you, what's that process look like to making sure you keep the PM accountable to make sure they're getting done on time? And the second part to that is that since we manage properties that can't have a full-time kind of maintenance person, we have to always rely on third-party vendors. So the property manager is always calling out the third-party vendors for plumbers, electricians, handymans, and it seems like it's a lot of coordination on their part. And do you have any maybe tips on how we can help the property manager make their life easier on maybe going to one person that's maybe like a GC that can then distribute the work orders accordingly instead of you know, having to go to all these different vendors for handyman?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We do have a tracker on our Google form, how many work orders and, you know, how quickly. There's you know, within, you know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. And that's usually a discussion wanting to know what's going on. If the work orders build up, we've had a lot of turnover on a lot of maintenance staff. I think everyone's had it nationwide. It's that's the one position that I think we've got the most turnover on there. It also depends on how many unit turns you're doing that month. So I want to empower my team when we have a lot of turns that month. And we'll able to see it a couple weeks in advance, knowing how many renewals we have. And we'll outsource some stuff Maybe it's a painting, because that's not an expensive thing to outsource, but it's very time consuming for our maintenance people. It's probably the most time consuming. You know, they're not great at it. So just have someone good and outsource that to like speed up that type of stuff. And that's on a big property. So it definitely ebbs and flows how many work orders we get. But for a smaller property, my advice is maybe, you know, if you have 40 units, maybe you could partner. If the property management company has another property that's close by that's 40 units, maybe you could share a full-time person and split the hours evenly. You know, maybe there's meet another property owner that has the same size to share a person, because getting someone in each time for like plumbing and this and that, you know, it's certainly going to cost more. So if you can leverage economies of scale, that is really worthwhile. And you know, as you continue to be in this business and grow, like I strongly suggest, you know, partner up and going bigger too. And certainly I started small as well, because it's the same amount of work, whether it's a 50 unit, 150 unit, a 250 unit. So when you can go scale bigger, it definitely makes it worth, you know, you get a lot more bang for your buck, and you get better staff, you get better attention from the property management company. So there's a lot of benefits in that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's definitely something I know we've kind of spoken about within the GPs is looking into potentially hiring a person that can kind of do rounds around the different properties and help out with reducing those OpEx. As you know, these vendor costs, man, they add up like every month. Like they go $300 here, $350 there. Every time there's a work order. So we're trying to see if we can get a handle on, you know, those costs. So one last question, Gary, it made me think of, as you're saying that, you know, you're bringing on more people on your team to help you with the asset management, because it's going to get to a point where myself and maybe other folks on the team that are doing AM, it's going to be too much for just us to handle. As you're bringing people on your team, are these properties able to support kind of whatever salaries or hourlies that you're paying them? Are they spitting out enough cash flow for you and your business to, you know, support a full-time person to help you out with asset management as you're kind of growing and scaling? And how was your business plan behind that?
Yeah, I'm operating at a loss. You know, with marketing and everything that I'm spending. The nice part is, I mean, it is a high margin business that we're in. Excuse me. So, I mean, you spend money to make money. So I'm willing to invest it. And we're not reliant on acquisition fees or just doing deals. I mean, we like I said, we haven't done a deal in a very long time, and there was no gun to our head to do a deal, just to do a deal to get fees to pay my team. You know, we're in it for the long haul, but you know, if you could focus on, okay, well, what am I paying this person? That, you know, going down the line, what easy tasks, you know, that anyone can do that maybe you could pass off, maybe to a VA or someone else that wants to help out, that you could pay $15 an hour to help you, you know, keep costs down, but do simple tasks. You know, I think that is a good way to go. And so look at, you know, what you do over the course of a week to make that determination of what things you should be passing off and starting that way. And so maybe you don't need an asset manager and you still do it yourself, but then they can do some easier tasks that are on your plate, you know?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thank you.
Where did we meet? We met at a conference at least once or twice.
I think I probably met you a couple of times at different conferences. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first time we met was over at the Hunter Thompson event over in Manhattan Beach, where he had it back then.
Oh, yeah.
Before he switched over to Louisville last year.
Yep.
So
yep.
That was a good one.
Question for you, Gary, on the reserve side. You had mentioned something about 100,000 for roofs, 100,000 for this or that. I'm just wondering, when you were starting off, with maybe smaller properties, how you scaled that reserve. And I know a lot of this is going to be dependent on the age of property, the age of the mechanicals, all that stuff. But it's always a balancing act. I understand that in terms of having too much cash and being a drag on returns, and then also, being able to sleep at night. So I'm just wondering how you think about that.
Yeah. I didn't have like a magic formula. Like I kind of like, okay, what's the year? What kind of condition? When was the last done? And just kind of like ballpark it. As I grow, like I'll start needing to come up with a formula, but I take whatever I think it would cost to fix, and to cover my ass and add, and knowing that if I do for all the different things, it's really rare for everything to break. I mean, it could happen, but if you're covered in a bunch of different areas and one or two things break, then they're more than covered. But what I tell my investors, I'm not going to have the deals with the highest IRR, at least from a marketing perspective. My IRR has been incredibly high when we sell it, but I'd rather under promise and over deliver, and tell your investors, like, if you're chasing IRR, go to someone else, because most likely they're not going to hit it. So, like, keep them within a small range, and don't try to get the highest IRR, get extra money, raise extra money, protect you, over deliver, and they'll keep coming back time and time again.
Awesome advice. Thank you.
Appreciate that. We probably got time for one more burning question before we start closing it out.
Speaking of how you think about things, you mentioned, some deals, they're a struggle the whole way through. So I'm just curious, like, how do you personally handle that, as far as like mentally, maybe even emotionally? Like, how do you kind of get through that? Because, I think we all know, like, tough times in any business, but in real estate, it can be a drag on your soul sometimes.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty good handling the heat. I mean, I'm entrepreneur my whole life. So I know that I'm doing the work, and I'm constantly solving problems, and I'm doing the best that I can. And we have extra money, God forbid, or I'll put in money, like, if I have to, like, I have reserves. So just keep staying at it and staying positive, and like, you're not alone, and don't be afraid. Like, if I don't know something, which there's plenty of things I don't know, I have a network. I mean, that's the beauty of real estate. If you don't know someone's usually going to be able to get you the answer, or, hey, let me connect you with a friend that went through the same issue, and maybe they'll have some advice. I think it's more than any other industry that I've come across, like, everyone's pretty helpful. And so it's comfort in numbers, because most likely someone else is probably going through the same thing. And so you could speed your issues, or at least know that other people are going through the same thing, and that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. Just be, you're in it for the long haul, and stay the course, and it will turn eventually.
Sage wisdom right there, Gary. Appreciate that. Gary, I want to put you on the spot one last time. How can people connect with you, learn more about you, participate in your latest acquisition you got going on? Shameless plug time. Go.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, you can go to our website, breakofdaycapital.com. I'll put it here. And from there, you could see everything, our social media links. You can sign up for our newsletter, and it's got the podcast there. It's got everything you need to know. There's also some really good resource tools there on one of the tabs. And feel free to follow me on social media. Glad I was able to give you some resources, and I look forward to seeing you guys at future conferences and whatnot.